I'm Audrey Mitchell, 29, and I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. Hundreds of texts, missed calls, and voicemails all saying the same thing. I ruined the family vacation. All because I refused to be the unpaid babysitter for my sister Stephanie's twins one more time. After years of having them dumped on me without warning, I finally did something drastic. I slipped away at the airport while no one was looking. Before I tell you why I vanished at the airport, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you've ever been taken advantage of by family. Trust me, this story might give you the courage to set your own boundaries. To understand why I disappeared at the airport, you need to know about my family. We've always been close-knit. Sunday dinners, group chats, and annual vacations. But underneath that picture-perfect facade lies a web of dysfunction that's been suffocating me for years. My older sister Stephanie is 32, 3 years older than me, and has always been the golden child. Growing up, her dance recitals took precedence over my art shows. Her college graduation was a lavish party. Mine was a dinner at Olive Garden. I've spent a lifetime living in her shadow, but I accepted it. That's just how families work sometimes, right? Everything changed when Stephanie had her twins, Jackson and Emily, 4 years ago. Don't get me wrong, I love those kids. They're adorable with their matching blonde curls and dimpled smiles. But from the moment they were born, I somehow became the default babysitter, despite having a demanding career as a graphic designer with deadlines and client meetings. Audrey, can you take the twins for a few hours? It's an emergency, Stephanie would text. And being the good sister I am, I'd rearrange my schedule, cancel plans, and rush over. Only to discover later through Instagram that the emergency was a spa day with friends or a lunch date with her husband Brandon. The pattern became predictable. Every family gathering turned into the Audrey childcare service. Thanksgiving last year? I spent it in the basement playing with trains while everyone enjoyed cocktails upstairs. Christmas? I missed the gift exchange because Emily had a meltdown and Stephanie was too exhausted to deal with it. My birthday dinner? Spent cutting chicken nuggets into stars because the kids only eat them that way. I tried establishing boundaries. I really did. Stephanie, I can't watch the kids this weekend. I have a major project due, I'd say. But I already made plans. Mom said you weren't doing anything important, she'd counter. And there lies another issue. My parents, Margaret and Robert Mitchell, who enable Stephanie's behavior at every turn. They're loving people who worked hard their whole lives, but they've always had a blind spot when it comes to their firstborn. Family helps family, my mother would say whenever I expressed frustration. When you have kids someday, Stephanie will return the favor. But we all know that's not true. Stephanie has never returned a favor in her life. My cousin Rachel is the only one who seems to notice the unfair treatment. At last year's 4th of July barbecue, she pulled me aside after watching me juggle 2 plates of food, a diaper bag, and a crying toddler while Stephanie lounged by the pool. You know this isn't normal, right? Rachel whispered. You're not their mother. I nodded but didn't know what to do about it. The few times I'd tried standing up for myself, I was labeled selfish and unsupportive. The guilt trips were masterful, making me question if I really was the problem. So I fell into the role of Aunt Audrey, the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who would drop everything when duty called. My apartment became a satellite storage unit for toys, spare clothes, and baby equipment. My refrigerator always stocked with kid-friendly snacks. My bathroom cabinet filled with bubble bath and Band-Aids featuring cartoon characters. Meanwhile, my career suffered. I missed opportunities for advancement because I couldn't stay late or take on additional projects. My social life dwindled as friends stopped inviting me places, knowing I'd likely cancel last minute due to a family emergency. Dating became nearly impossible. Try explaining to a potential partner why you have to end dinner early because your sister forgot she had plans and needed you to babysit. I love those kids, but I started to resent the situation. Every time my phone rang and Stephanie's name appeared, my stomach would knot. Every family gathering became a source of anxiety rather than joy. Every thank you from Stephanie felt hollow, especially when followed immediately by another request. The twins aren't the problem. They're sweet kids when properly supervised. The problem is that I've become a convenient solution for my sister's desire to have children without the full responsibility of raising them. And my parents have endorsed this arrangement, going so far as to suggest I move closer to Stephanie's house to make things easier for everyone. Everyone except me, that is. This was my life for 4 years. For years of canceled plans, rearranged schedules, and putting my own needs last. For years of watching Stephanie enjoy the perks of motherhood while outsourcing the difficult parts to me. For years of my parents reinforcing that my time and ambitions were less valuable than my sister's convenience. Something had to give. And unfortunately for my family's vacation plans, that something was me. Our annual family vacation has been a tradition since we were kids. Every summer, we rent the same beach house in Florida for a week of sun, sand, and supposed family bonding. This year would mark the twins' 3rd trip, and I was already dreading it based on previous experiences. Last year, I returned home needing a vacation from my vacation. While everyone else came back with tans and relaxed smiles, I was exhausted from chasing toddlers, preparing separate meals, and handling bedtime tantrums alone. My vacation photos consisted mainly of the kids playing while everyone else posed by the ocean or at nice restaurants. This year's planning meeting took place at my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon in early June. Mom had prepared her famous lasagna, and we gathered around the dining table with calendars and laptops. Dad was discussing flight options when Stephanie made her announcement. "So Brandon and I were thinking," she began, bouncing Emily on her knee while Jackson colored quietly for once. "The twins are really looking forward to the beach this year. They're at such a fun age now." Everyone nodded in agreement, and I forced a smile. They were at a fun age. They were also at an exhausting age that required constant supervision, especially near water. But Stephanie continued, glancing at me, "We're obviously going to need some help with them. There's so much we want to do this year." I felt my mother's eyes on me before I even looked up. The expectation hung in the air like a heavy cloud. "Audrey doesn't mind. Do you, sweetie?" Mom said, not really asking. "You're so good with the kids." I opened my mouth to respond, but Dad was already moving on, discussing the activities everyone wanted to do. As he pulled up the shared document where we'd been planning the itinerary, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Beach day. Adults rotate watching kids. Fishing charter. Brandon, Dad, Mom, Audrey with kids. Seafood dinner at Marina. Adults only. Audrey order room service with kids. Shopping day. Girls only. Except Audrey. Kid duty. The pattern was unmistakable. I wasn't being included in the actual vacation at all. I was being assigned babysitting duties for the entire week. "I think there's a mistake on the schedule," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It looks like I'm watching the kids during all the main activities." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Stephanie shifted in her seat. "Well, someone has to watch them," she said with a nervous laugh. "And you're so much better with them than anyone else." Better meaning I was the only one who actually disciplined them and didn't just give them ice cream when they screamed. "We thought you wouldn't mind," Mom added. "You don't really like fishing anyway, and the seafood restaurant is very expensive." As if that justified excluding me from everything. As if I was being done a favor by being relegated to childcare duty. When we took a break from planning, I overheard Stephanie talking to Brandon in the kitchen. "It's perfect," she was saying in a hushed voice. "Audrey will watch the kids, so we can actually relax this year. I've already booked us that couple's massage on the beach." The casual way she said it, as if my time wasn't even a consideration, made something shift inside me. This wasn't a favor I was doing occasionally. This was an expectation, an assumption that my role in this family was permanent, unpaid help. I tried talking to Stephanie privately before I left that evening, catching her in the guest room as she packed up the twins' toys. "Steph, I need to talk to you about the vacation schedule," I began. "Isn't it great?" she said, not looking up. "I think this will be the best trip yet. The kids are so excited about building sandcastles with their Aunt Audrey." "That's the thing," I said carefully. "The schedule has me watching them the entire time." I was hoping to actually enjoy some of the activities too. Stephanie finally looked at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "You don't understand because you don't have kids," she said dismissively. "Brandon and I need this break. Do you know how hard it is being parents? We never get time to ourselves." I bit back the obvious response, that they seem to get plenty of time to themselves, usually at my expense. "I understand that," I said instead. "But this is supposed to be my vacation too. Maybe we could take turns or hire a babysitter for a few hours some days." Stephanie's eyes widened. "A stranger watching my children? Absolutely not. And anyway, we can't afford that after paying for the beach house and flights." "I can't just be the babysitter all week," I insisted, feeling my resolve strengthen. "I need to have some enjoyment too." "You're being selfish," she snapped, the words hitting me like a physical blow. "This is about family. The kids need you. I need you. Why can't you just help out without making it a big deal?" And there it was, the guilt trip, right on schedule. By the time I left my parents' house that night, I had somehow been manipulated into agreeing to the arrangement, my protests dismissed as selfishness, my desire for any personal enjoyment during the vacation painted as anti-family sentiment. But as I drove home, something felt different. The usual guilt that followed these encounters was missing, replaced by a simmering anger that wouldn't subside. I found myself gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, wondering when exactly I had become so disposable in my own family's eyes. The weeks leading up to the vacation were filled with mounting anxiety. Each day brought new text messages about vacation details, and with them, more evidence that I was seen as nothing more than convenient childcare. "Don't forget to pack the kids' floaties," Stephanie texted. "And maybe some activities for the plane? They get bored easily, and I want to watch a movie." Another day, "FYI, I signed us up for that dolphin tour, but children under 5 aren't allowed on the boat. I told them you'd stay behind with the twins." And later, "Mom suggested we do a girls' spa afternoon, but obviously someone needs to watch the kids while Brandon golfs with Dad. You don't mind, right?" Each message chipped away at my patience. I hadn't even been consulted about the dolphin tour or the spa day. My participation, or rather, non-participation, had been decided without me. The situation escalated when I received an email confirmation for a couple's massage at the resort spa. Confused, I opened it to find a reservation for Stephanie and Brandon Mitchell, with the note "Gift from Audrey Mitchell" at the bottom. A quick check of my credit card statement confirmed my suspicion. Stephanie had used my card to book herself a $300 massage as a thank you for watching her kids. The irony was almost laughable. She was thanking me for watching her children by spending my money on herself, without even asking permission. That evening, I met my best friend Natalie for dinner, bringing my laptop to show her the vacation itinerary. "This isn't a vacation for you," she said bluntly after scanning the schedule. "This is unpaid labor. You realize that, right?" I pushed my salad around the plate. "They're family. It's complicated." "No, it's not," Natalie countered. "They're taking advantage of you because you let them. Would Stephanie ever do this for you?" We both knew the answer. When I had pneumonia last winter, Stephanie had dropped off a can of soup and then asked if I could watch the twins that weekend because she and Brandon had tickets to a concert. "You need to stand up for yourself," Natalie continued. "Tell them you won't be the designated babysitter. What's the worst that could happen?" The worst that could happen was clear. I'd be labeled the selfish sister, the bad aunt, the family disappointment. The guilt trips would be epic. The passive-aggressive comments would last for years. But as I drove home from dinner, I realized something worse was already happening. I was disappearing. My needs, my desires, my very personhood was being erased within my family dynamic. I was becoming nothing more than a function, Aunt Audrey, the reliable childcare provider. I resolved to have a serious conversation with my family before the trip. I practiced what I would say, rehearsing firm but kind statements about boundaries and mutual respect. I was determined to address the situation like a mature adult. Then, the night before our departure, my doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m. I opened it to find Stephanie standing there with the twins in their pajamas, an overnight bag slung over her shoulder. "Surprise," she announced, ushering the children inside before I could react. "Pre-vacation sleepover." "What?" I stood dumbfounded as the twins ran into my apartment, immediately headed for the shelf where I kept the few toys I had for their visits. "Brandon and I have so much packing to do," Stephanie explained, dropping the bag in my hallway. "And we wanted to have a nice dinner before the chaos of traveling with kids tomorrow. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was because I didn't have children, a fact Stephanie conveniently remembered only when it suited her narrative that I couldn't possibly understand the hardships of parenthood. "You could have asked me first," I said, but Stephanie was already halfway out the door. "They've had dinner, but they'll want a snack before bed. Oh, and Emily has a new thing about the bathroom light being on all night. Jackson might still be going through that nightmare phase, so if he wakes up crying, just let him sleep with you." "Thanks, you're the best. I'll pick them up at 7 to head to the airport." And just like that, she was gone, leaving me with 2 energetic preschoolers and a growing sense of resentment. The evening that followed was chaotic. The twins, excited about the trip and the unexpected sleepover, were wound up beyond control. They emptied my bookshelf, jumped on my bed, and somehow found a marker I didn't even know I owned to decorate my living room wall. By the time I finally got them to sleep, Emily in my bed, Jackson on the couch, it was nearly midnight and my carefully organized apartment looked like it had been hit by a tornado. As I sat on my kitchen floor, picking up scattered Cheerios and wondering how one snack could create such devastation, Stephanie texted. "By the way, I forgot to mention Brandon's parents might join us for a day or 2 at the beach house. If they do, they'll take our room, so we'll bunk with you. The twins can sleep on your floor. Thanks again for tonight. This is why you're the favorite aunt." 2 hearts. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. I wasn't the favorite aunt. I was the only aunt. And now I was going to lose my private bedroom during the vacation too? Something inside me snapped. Years of accumulated resentment crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. This would never end. The taking would never stop. No matter how many boundaries I tried to establish, they would be trampled. No matter how many times I expressed my feelings, they would be dismissed. Nothing would change unless I did something drastic. I looked at the sleeping children, their peaceful faces in stark contrast to the turmoil in my mind. I loved them, but I couldn't continue being exploited by their mother. I couldn't keep setting myself on fire to keep others warm. That night, as I slept on the floor of my own apartment because 2 children had claimed my bed, I made a decision that would indeed ruin the family vacation and possibly change my family dynamic forever. Morning arrived with the chaos I'd come to expect whenever the twins were involved. Emily woke up wet because Stephanie had forgotten to mention she still occasionally had accidents at night. Jackson refused to eat anything but chocolate cereal, which I didn't have, resulting in a 20-minute meltdown that only ended when I promised we'd get donuts on the way to the airport. By the time Stephanie arrived, 30 minutes late, naturally, I was already exhausted, and the vacation hadn't even officially started. "You look terrible," she commented as she breezed into my apartment. "You might want to put on some makeup before we leave. Mom's planning to take family photos at the airport." I bit my tongue and loaded the twins' overnight bag into my car alongside my own suitcase. Stephanie had conveniently run out of space in her SUV, so I was driving separately to the airport with all the kids' beach toys, floaties, and extra luggage. "We'll meet you at Terminal B," Stephanie said, already backing out of my driveway before I had even closed my trunk. "Don't be late. Our flight's at 11. The drive to the airport was actually pleasant with just me and the twins. Despite everything, I did enjoy their company when they weren't overtired or overstimulated. Emily sang her current favorite song about dinosaurs while Jackson pointed out every truck we passed. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of guilt about what I was planning to do. But then we arrived at the airport and reality came crashing back. "Finally," Stephanie exclaimed when we met them at the check-in counter. "What took you so long?" "We've been waiting for 20 minutes. Before I could point out that I had stopped for the donuts she knew about and had to find parking with zero help, she thrust more bags at me. "Can you take these through security? Brandon's hands are full with the stroller, and I need to fix my makeup before the photos." "Oh, and can you take the kids to the bathroom? Jackson said he needs to go, and I just did my nails." My parents arrived moments later, exclaiming over the twins and barely acknowledging me except to ask if I had remembered to pack the children's swimming vests. As we moved toward the security line, I overheard my mother discussing dinner plans with Stephanie. "The restaurant at the resort looks amazing," Mom said. "Adults only though, so Audrey can order room service with the kids." "Perfect," Stephanie replied. And I was thinking, for the second night, maybe Audrey could stay in with them again so the four of us could check out that seafood place Brandon read about. They were planning yet more exclusions, right in front of me, not even bothering to lower their voices or consider my presence. In their minds, I wasn't even a person with my own desires or needs anymore. We joined the security line, a complicated process with children, strollers, and the mountain of bags and equipment deemed necessary for traveling with twins. I found myself at the back of our group, holding Jackson's hand while balancing his backpack, my purse, and a bag of snacks deemed essential for the flight. And that's when it happened. Stephanie's phone rang, and she stepped aside to take the call, gesturing vaguely for me to move the family's belongings forward in line. Brandon was busy collapsing the stroller. My parents were already placing their shoes and jackets in bins. No one was looking at me. No one was paying attention. I looked down at Jackson, who had spotted a toy store and was distracted. I looked at the security line ahead, where my family continued to move forward, assuming I would follow like I always did. And then I looked at the exit sign. It was a surreal moment. Time seemed to slow down as I made a decision that had been building for years. I gently released Jackson's hand, making sure he rejoined his sister near my mother. Then I took a step backward. And another. And another. No one noticed. I turned and walked calmly toward the exit, half expecting someone to call my name, to stop me. But no one did. I pushed through the airport doors into the bright morning sunlight, feeling like I was in a dream. I reached my car, got inside, and sat there for a moment, heart pounding. What I had just done was childish, irresponsible, potentially hurtful to the twins who didn't deserve to be caught in this family drama. But for the first time in years, I had chosen myself. I had refused to be taken for granted. I had set a boundary in the only way that seemed possible after years of being ignored and dismissed. I turned on my car and drove away from the airport, switching off my phone as it began to buzz with incoming calls and texts. I knew they would be furious, confused, perhaps even worried. But I needed space, literal and figurative, from the family dynamic that had been suffocating me. I drove to a hotel about 20 minutes from my apartment, a place where no one would think to look for me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was hiding out at a hotel while my family headed to a beach resort. But this quiet room with its clean sheets and silence felt more like a vacation than anything I had experienced with my family in years. That first evening alone was strange, but liberating. I ordered room service, a luxury I would never have been allowed on the family trip, and ate it in bed while watching a movie of my choosing, not an animated feature about talking animals. I took a bath without plastic toys floating around me. I slept diagonally across the bed because I could. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt guilty about the twins, hoping they weren't too confused by my disappearance. But alongside that guilt was something unfamiliar, a sense of peace. For once, I had prioritized my own well-being. For once, I had refused to be the family doormat. I knew there would be consequences. I knew there would be anger and accusations and guilt trips. But in that moment, wrapped in hotel sheets with no one making demands of me, I couldn't bring myself to regret my decision. For the first time in years, I was taking care of Audrey. I slept deeply that night, the kind of uninterrupted sleep I rarely experienced when responsible for two energetic children. When I finally woke around 8 a.m., I felt refreshed but anxious about facing reality. With a deep breath, I turned on my phone. The screen immediately lit up with notification after notification. My phone actually froze for a moment trying to process the barrage of missed calls, voicemails, and texts. Once it caught up, the numbers were staggering. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, and 198 text messages. I started with the texts, watching the progression of emotions from my family unfold in real time. Stephanie, 11:15 a.m., where are you? We're boarding soon. Stephanie, 11:20 a.m., Audrey, this isn't funny. Where did you go? Stephanie, 11:25 a.m., are you kidding me right now? Did you seriously leave? Call me immediately. Stephanie, 11:40 a.m., I cannot believe you would do this to my children. They're asking where Aunt Audrey went, and I have no idea what to tell them. Mom and Dad are furious. The texts escalated from there, growing increasingly angry and accusatory. My mother's messages started concerned, but quickly turned to guilt-tripping. Mom, 12:05 p.m., Audrey, we're very worried. Please call us to let us know you're safe. Mom, 12:30 p.m., I don't understand why you would do this to the family. The twins are crying for you. How could you be so selfish? Mom, 1:15 p.m., we've boarded the plane. I'm so disappointed in you. This is not how your father and I raised you to behave. My father's texts were fewer but similarly disapproving. Brandon sent a couple of confused messages before going silent, likely dealing with the fallout of traveling with two upset children and a furious wife. The most recent batch of messages were from this morning, sent from the resort. Stephanie, 7:30 a.m., hope you're happy. The vacation you ruined is off to a terrible start. The twins barely slept and kept asking for you. I had to lie and say you were sick. This is by far the most immature, selfish thing you've ever done. Mom, 7:45 a.m., your sister is beside herself. Your father had to miss the fishing trip he was looking forward to because Stephanie needed help with the children. Is this what you wanted? To punish the whole family. There were dozens more in the same vein, each one designed to make me feel guilty, selfish, and wrong for my decision to step away. But among the avalanche of accusations, there was one thread that stood out. Rachel, 1:30 p.m. Hey, just heard what happened. You okay? Rachel, 2:15 p.m. For what it's worth, I get it. Text me if you need to talk. No judgment here. Rachel, 8 a.m. morning. Just checking in. The family is in full drama mode, but I want to make sure you're all right. This has been building for a long time. I've seen how they treat you. I felt a rush of gratitude for my cousin's understanding. At least someone in the family recognized that this wasn't a random act of selfishness, but the culmination of years of being taken for granted. After reading through the messages, I decided it was time to break my silence. I composed a long text to the family group chat, taking care with my words. I'm safe and fine. I apologize for any worry I caused, but I need everyone to understand why I left. For years, I've tried to express how I feel about being the default childcare provider without any consideration for my own enjoyment or needs. I've been talked over, dismissed, and made to feel selfish for wanting to be treated as more than free babysitting. The vacation schedule made it clear that once again, I wasn't seen as a full participant, but as staff. I reached my breaking point. I love the twins dearly, but I am not a co-parent. I deserve vacations too. I deserve consideration too. I deserve to be heard. I'm taking some time for myself right now, but I'm open to a conversation about healthier family dynamics when everyone returns. I hit send and braced myself for the response. It came almost immediately, a flurry of defensive and angry replies. Stephanie, are you kidding me with this victim act? We asked you to help with the kids. It's called being a family. Not everything is about you. Mom, this was not the way to handle this, Audrey. If you had concerns, you should have discussed them like an adult instead of running away and leaving us in a terrible position. Dad, your mother is very upset. I expected better from you. I put my phone down, feeling a mixture of frustration and resolve. They still weren't hearing me. They were so entrenched in the dynamic we'd established that they couldn't even acknowledge my perspective. Throughout the day, the messages continued. Stephanie posted passive-aggressive updates on social media about learning who you can really count on and protecting my children from unreliable people. Mom sent increasingly guilt-laden texts about how the twins kept asking for me and how Stephanie was struggling without your help. But then Rachel sent something unexpected, a video she'd discreetly recorded at the beach. It showed Stephanie actually playing with her own children, building a sandcastle and laughing. Brandon was helping Jackson with his bucket while Stephanie showed Emily how to decorate their creation with shells. Look at that, Rachel's accompanying text read. Turns out they can parent their own kids. Imagine that. The video gave me a strange feeling, relief that the twins were clearly fine and having fun, but also confirmation that Stephanie was fully capable of being an engaged mother when she had to be. It strengthened my resolve that what I had done, while drastic, had been necessary. Later that afternoon, my parents escalated their intervention, calling me simultaneously from both their phones until I finally answered. This has gone on long enough, my father said sternly. Your mother has booked you on a flight tomorrow morning. We expect you to be on it. We've already told the twins you're coming, Mom added, the implied guilt trip impossible to miss. They're so excited to see their Aunt Audrey. I'm not coming, I said quietly but firmly. I meant what I said in my message. I need some time, and then I want to have a real conversation about how I've been treated in this family. Booking a flight without even asking me is exactly the kind of behavior I'm talking about, making decisions about my life without consulting me. The call devolved from there, with both my parents talking over me, dismissing my concerns as exaggerations, and insisting I was being dramatic. When my mother said, "Stephanie has always been there for you," I actually laughed out loud, a reaction that didn't go over well. By the time I hung up, it was clear that my family wasn't ready to hear me. They were still operating within the framework where my needs came last, where my time and feelings were less important than everyone else's convenience. But something had changed inside me. Their disapproval still hurt. I won't pretend it didn't, but it no longer had the power to make me back down. For the first time, I was standing firm in my own worth, even if they couldn't see it. That evening, I extended my hotel stay for the full week. If my family was having a vacation, then so was I, a real one on my own terms. I ordered another room service meal, booked myself a massage at the hotel spa, and started researching local attractions I might enjoy. As I settled into bed that night, my phone buzzed with one more message from Rachel. Just so you know, Stephanie actually had to miss the adults-only dinner tonight because she couldn't find anyone to watch her own children. Karma's interesting like that. Stay strong, cousin. Some of us think what you did took courage. I smiled and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring more fallout, I was sure. But tonight, I would sleep peacefully, secure in the knowledge that I had finally advocated for myself, even if it meant being labeled the one who ruined the vacation. The week that followed was unlike any I'd experienced in years, perhaps ever. While my family sent updates from their beach vacation, each carefully crafted to maximize guilt, I embarked on a different kind of journey, one of self-discovery and reflection. I extended my hotel stay for 3 days, allowing myself the luxury of room service, uninterrupted sleep, and long baths. No one needed me to cut their food, wipe their face, or arbitrate arguments over toys. No one interrupted my shower to announce they'd spilled juice on the carpet. No one crawled into my bed at 3 a.m. because of a bad dream. The silence was initially unsettling, then liberating. On the fourth day, I returned to my apartment, half expecting to find my family waiting there to ambush me with their disappointment. Instead, I found only the lingering evidence of the twins' last visit: crayon marks on my coffee table, a forgotten sock under the couch, Cheerios crushed into the carpet. I spent the afternoon cleaning, both my physical space and my mental one. As I scrubbed and vacuumed, I thought about the patterns in my life where I consistently put others first, not just with Stephanie and the twins, but with friends, colleagues, even strangers. I'd become so accustomed to prioritizing everyone else's needs that I barely recognized my own anymore. That evening, I called Natalie, who had been sending supportive texts throughout my self-imposed exile. "I'm proud of you," she said when I recounted the airport escape. "It was dramatic, sure, but sometimes that's what it takes to break a pattern." They weren't listening when you tried to be reasonable. "They're still not listening," I sighed, scrolling through the latest batch of guilt trip texts. "My mother actually wrote, 'When you're ready to apologize to everyone for ruining the trip, we'll be waiting.'" "Of course she did," Natalie laughed. "Because acknowledging that they've been taking advantage of you would mean they'd have to change. It's easier to make you the villain." She was right, and the realization was both painful and clarifying. My family wasn't villainous. They loved me in their way, but they had become comfortable with a dynamic that benefited them at my expense. Changing that would require more than a single dramatic gesture at an airport. The next day, I did something I should have done years ago. I made an appointment with a therapist. Dr. Sarah Levine specialized in family dynamics, and she had an opening for a virtual consultation that same afternoon. Our first session was revelatory. Within an hour, Dr. Levine had helped me identify patterns I hadn't fully recognized: how I sought validation through self-sacrifice, how my childhood as the responsible sibling had conditioned me to prioritize others' needs, and how my difficulties saying no stemmed from fear of rejection. "What happened at the airport wasn't just about babysitting," she observed. "It was about being seen and valued as a person, not just for what you can do for others." We scheduled weekly sessions, and I left that first meeting with homework: to write down instances where I felt my boundaries were crossed, and to practice responses that protected my time and well-being without guilt. That exercise alone was eye-opening. Once I started noting boundary violations, I realized they happened almost daily, not just with my family, but with friends who expected immediate responses at all hours, coworkers who dumped last-minute projects on my desk, even the barista who flirted uncomfortably despite my obvious disinterest. I'd been a pushover in so many areas of my life, and it was time for that to change. While my family continued their vacation, sending strategic photos of the twins looking sad on the beach with captions like "Missing Aunt Audrey," I began rebuilding my life around my own priorities. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected because Stephanie's childcare emergencies always took precedence. I accepted an invitation to a weekend art retreat I would normally have declined, anticipating a last-minute call from my sister. I redecorated my apartment, removing the child-proofing measures and plastic toys that had gradually taken over my living space. I didn't eliminate them entirely. I did love being an aunt when it was on mutual terms, but I reclaimed my home as an adult space that occasionally accommodated children, not a satellite daycare center. Most importantly, I developed a clear set of boundaries for future family interactions. 1. I would no longer accept last-minute childcare requests, except in genuine emergencies. 2. I would require at least 24 hours notice for any babysitting, which I could accept or decline based on my own schedule. 3. I would expect to be included in family activities during gatherings, not automatically assigned to child duty. 4. I would no longer allow my credit card to be used without explicit permission. 5. I would expect my no to be respected without argument or guilt trips. These weren't unreasonable demands. They were basic considerations that should have been standard all along. As the week progressed, I found myself sleeping better, feeling more energized, and even looking forward to the inevitable confrontation when my family returned. Where before I would have dreaded their disapproval, now I felt prepared to stand my ground. The day before their scheduled return, I received an unexpected text from Brandon, my sister's husband. "Hey Audrey, I know things are tense right now, but I wanted to say something privately. This trip has been a wake-up call for Stephanie and me. Having to actually parent our kids full-time has made us realize how much we've relied on you. I'm not saying what you did was right, but I understand it better now. Just wanted you to know that." It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement, the first crack in the united front of family disapproval. It gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, something positive could come from this situation. That night, I prepared for their return by practicing what I would say in the inevitable family meeting that would be called. I rehearsed calm, clear statements about my feelings and boundaries. I anticipated their counterarguments and prepared responses that wouldn't escalate the situation. And I reminded myself of something Dr. Levine had said in our session: your family may never fully understand or validate your perspective. Your job isn't to convince them, it's to hold your boundaries regardless of their reaction. As I fell asleep that night, I felt a sense of calm determination. The old Audrey would have been anxious, rehearsing apologies, preparing to fold under pressure. The new Audrey, or rather, the real Audrey who had been buried under years of people-pleasing, was ready to stand her ground. Whatever happened next, I wouldn't be disappearing again, not at an airport and not within my own family dynamic. The text came 3 days after my family's return from Florida. Family meeting. Our house. Sunday at 3 p.m. We need to talk about what happened. My mother's tone was clear even through the digital message. This was a summons, not an invitation. In the past, I would have immediately agreed, apologized for any inconvenience, and offered to bring dessert as a peace offering. This time, I replied, I'd prefer to meet at Riverfront Cafe instead. A neutral location would be better for this discussion. The pushback was immediate. This is a private family matter. We're not discussing it in public. It doesn't need to be public, I countered. But I'm not comfortable having this conversation in someone's home right now. The cafe has a private patio we can reserve. After some back and forth, they reluctantly agreed. It was a small victory, but significant. I had set a boundary and held it despite pressure. The old patterns were already being disrupted. Sunday arrived with a knot of anxiety in my stomach, but beneath it was a steady resolve. I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early, securing the corner table on the patio where we would have privacy without me feeling cornered. I ordered a latte and waited, reviewing the notes I'd made with my therapist about staying calm and focused. My parents arrived first, their expressions a mixture of concern and disappointment. Mom moved to hug me, then hesitated, settling for an awkward pat on my shoulder instead. Dad nodded stiffly. The tension was palpable. Stephanie and Brandon arrived moments later, the twins noticeably absent, a small mercy I hadn't expected. Stephanie looked tired, the post-vacation glow already faded. She didn't meet my eyes as she sat down. An uncomfortable silence settled over the table until my mother broke it with a deep sigh. Well, she said, folding her hands on the table. I think we all know why we're here. Audrey, what you did was completely unacceptable. You left without a word at the airport, abandoned your family, and ruined a vacation we'd been planning for months. I took a slow breath. I understand why you see it that way. From my perspective, I reached a breaking point after years of being taken for granted and having my concerns dismissed. Taken for granted? Stephanie interjected, her voice rising. We ask for help with the kids sometimes. That's what family does. It's more than sometimes, I replied, working to keep my voice level. It's constant, last minute, and without consideration for my time or plans. The vacation schedule made it clear I wasn't being included as a family member but as unpaid childcare. That's ridiculous, my mother said. Of course you're family. We just thought you'd enjoy being with the twins while we did some adult activities. Did anyone ask what I might enjoy? I countered. Did anyone consider that I might want to go fishing or have a nice dinner out too? I was excluded from every major activity on the itinerary. My father shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should have discussed the schedule more thoroughly, but running away like that was childish and irresponsible. I agree that how I left wasn't ideal, I conceded. I should have been direct about my decision not to go. But I had tried being direct about my feelings many times before, and I was always overruled or made to feel selfish. I didn't see another way to break the pattern. The conversation continued in this vein for nearly an hour, my family oscillating between defensiveness and accusation, me trying to stay focused on the core issues rather than getting derailed by specific incidents or comparison of hurts. Then something unexpected happened. Brandon, who had been mostly quiet, cleared his throat. I think Audrey has a point, he said, earning a shocked look from my sister. Steph, be honest. We do rely on her a lot with the kids. And the vacation schedule did basically assign her to childcare duty the whole time. Because she's good with them. Stephanie protested. They love her. Yes, but that doesn't mean she shouldn't get to enjoy her vacation too, Brandon replied. If we had hired a babysitter for some of those activities, we would have paid them. We just expected Audrey to do it for free because she's family. A silence fell over the table as his words sank in. It was the first acknowledgement from anyone that perhaps the arrangement had indeed been unfair. Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. So, I'm a terrible mother who pawns her kids off on her sister? Is that what everyone thinks? That's not what anyone said, I responded gently. You're a good mom, Steph. The twins adore you. But being a parent doesn't mean you can't ask for help. It just means being mindful about how and when you ask and respecting the other person's right to say no. My sister wiped at her eyes. It's just so hard sometimes. You make it look easy with them. It looks easy because it's temporary for me, I explained. I get them at their best for limited periods. And even then, it's exhausting. I can't imagine doing it full-time like you do. It was the first genuine moment of connection in the conversation, an acknowledgement of her struggles without excusing the pattern of taking advantage. My parents watched this exchange with mixed expressions. Mom still seemed resistant, but Dad was nodding slowly. Maybe we have been a bit presumptuous about Audrey's availability, he admitted. Margaret, remember how we used to get frustrated when your sister would drop her kids with us without asking first? This isn't so different. My mother pursed her lips, but didn't argue. From there, the conversation shifted to what would happen going forward. I calmly presented the boundaries I had developed during the past week. There was pushback, particularly from my mother who seemed to take my boundaries as a personal rejection, but gradually a new understanding began to form. By the time we left the cafe 3 hours later, we had reached an uneasy truce. They hadn't fully embraced my perspective, and I knew there would be slips and tests of my newly established boundaries, but it was a start. The weeks that followed were a period of adjustment for everyone. Stephanie called twice asking for last-minute babysitting. Once I agreed because my schedule permitted it, and once I declined because I had plans. The second time was the real test. She tried to guilt me, suggesting my plans couldn't be as important as her need, but I held firm. After an awkward silence, she simply said, "Okay then," and hung up. 3 days later, she called again, not to ask for childcare, but to invite me to lunch, just the two of us. It was the first such invitation in years, and it felt like an olive branch. My parents took longer to adjust. There were still comments about how families should help each other without keeping score, but they were learning to respect my no without launching into guilt trips. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. 3 months after the airport incident, we had another family dinner. As we gathered around my parents' table, I noticed something different. Stephanie had arranged her own childcare for the evening, hiring a local teenager she trusted. The twins weren't present, and no one had asked me to watch them. We thought it would be nice to have an adults-only dinner, Stephanie explained when I commented on it. The kids are having pizza and movie night with Hannah from down the street. It was such a simple thing, but it represented a fundamental shift in our family dynamic. For the first time in years, I was being treated as a sister and daughter, not as a built-in babysitter. As we enjoyed our meal, I caught Rachel's eye across the table. She gave me a subtle thumbs up and mouthed, "Worth ruining the vacation?" I smiled and nodded. Because that's the thing about ruining something. Sometimes what you're really doing is making space for something better to be built in its place. When I slipped away at that airport, I wasn't just escaping a week of unpaid childcare. I was breaking a pattern that had been suffocating me for years, creating the opportunity for more balanced, respectful relationships with the people I love. It hasn't been a perfect transformation. There are still moments of tension, still occasions when old habits resurface. But now I have the confidence to address them directly, to hold my boundaries with love but firmness. I've learned that being selfish and being self-respecting are two very different things, though those who benefit from your sacrifice will often confuse them deliberately. I've discovered that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to say no to what depletes you so you can say yes to what fulfills you. Have you ever had to take a dramatic stand to change a family dynamic? What boundaries have you had to set with people you love? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if the story resonated with you. Remember, taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it gives some of you the courage to advocate for yourselves too, even when it's difficult.